There is nothing extraordinary about me except that I was raised to believe I'm extraordinary.
You've heard of 32-year-old self-made
The
millionaire.
entrepreneur and global business speaker Vusi Thembekwayo.
So the real question is, what is wealth? Really? Everybody wants the outcome and the success. It's the difficulty to get there. That's the hard part. It has to be our generational mission to not just empower the self, but to empower others. The most exciting day of being an entrepreneur, I'm going to tell you now, is the day you decide to start your business. I want to belong to a generation that inspires young people to imagine a different future. I grew up without, I suffered, I was told I'm worthless. Now that I have it, I'm going to show everybody. Too many of us are too married to what we're good at, not what we need to get good at. I want to make it clear that this is your game, that you're not to be messed with. So we need to create a culture that says start. Start badly, start scrappy, make mistakes, fail, start again, whatever you do. Just start. I have so much to share, so little time. And so I hope that you will be patient with me over the next few minutes as we go through what it is that I've got for us to go through. There are three fundamental elements to what I hope to cover. First, this is a leadership summit. And so to the extent possible, I'll try and talk about leadership. Second, this conversation about timing. And so I'll go into this season and this moment that we find ourselves. Over the years, one of the things I've been asking myself is, when human beings know what it is we need to do, why don't we do it? So we come to a conference like this, we meet, we gather, we take the notes, we shoot the videos, we feel inspired, and we leave. And yet, when we gather a year later, we have not made sufficient material progress. And what I learned over the years was this, that we don't do things not because we don't have the desire, but often because we don't have the tools and the emotional skill. There has been a lot of work being done over the past day or so, and there will be more done by speakers with whom I have the incredible privilege to just share this platform here. What I'm hoping to do with our time today is to do more of the how and not so much of the what. I really want to get into the mechanics of how. So when we leave here, Vusi, what are the things we need to do? I have the emotion, I've got the inspiration, I've got the motivation, I've got that, I've got it. But on Monday, what changes? What are the things I need to do? And what my own leadership journey has taught me is where I have been stuck, it was not but for a lack of desire. Often it was for a lack of the knowledge, systems, tools, and skills. And so what we do as human beings is we force our way through the lack of knowledge using emotion. Now, if you're a leader, this works to a season. What happens is the force that you use elevates you until you reach a place where you occupy a space where your force has no residency. Suddenly you find yourself in a room of peers, people you can't dictate to. And because you've not learned the softer skill of how to co-create, not coerce, you find yourself defaulting to the level you've come from rather than ascending to the level you're called to. Does that make sense? Yeah, that was so deep. I should tweet that. Where's my phone? Yeah. So how do we push beyond this? Now recognize, where are my people from Africa? Africa, where are you? Yeah, all 5 of you. I see you. I see you. And so what I'm hoping to do is to get really into how do we push beyond knowing the what? It's the how. It's the how. First statement. Second statement. Before I make the second statement, I have a side quip. What is it with the people in Texas? I mean, what's the average height here? 6'10"? Please understand, where I come from, I'm considered a big guy. I'm 112 kilograms, I'm 6'2". I can hold my own until I arrived in Texas. And suddenly I'm walking into rooms and I am looking up at people. Let me just tell you, this is very unsettling, comrades. So whatever's in the food, you all cut that out. I went out to one of the restaurants and I saw the portions. I was like, I understand. I understand. And I said to the lady, I said, is this a supersized portion? She said, no, this is just Southern hospitality. I'm learning about the Southern hospitality. So we're going to push beyond the what. We're going to try and get into that how. First. Second. My grandfather had businesses when I was younger. And when my grandfather died, his businesses died. I suspect that this is the case for some of us in this room. And so when I started going into business, I wanted to answer a simple question. Why was it that the people who didn't look like me, who came from a different part of town, had parents and forefathers who created these businesses that would outlive them, but my people didn't? Without casting judgment, I wanted the insight. And so it led me down this journey of trying to understand, how do we make things multi-generational? And so what I hope to share is the how for multi-generational planning and thinking. I want to double click on that. Our problems as a community, no matter where we are so vast. Our challenges are so substantial. It's my humble submission that it is criminal for us to be leaders, in particular black and brown people, and not think scale. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of being told about my people, and the subtle side reference is that if it's black or brown, it's small. It almost doesn't need to be said, but that's what's in the undertext. We've got this DEI program. What they really mean is we've got this opportunity for 1,000 of you small, but we're going to focus on 1,000 of you small. And I'm trying to figure out, how do we create our own not small? Because let's be clear, we are consumer. We are culture. In almost every single part of the world, the trends we follow, the culture that is manifest, and the people influencing how people live is us. So on the one end, we're on this end of the creative creation, and on the other end, we're not capturing the economic value of that. One of the things I've learned is this. The money is always backstage. The money is always backstage. The money is in the engine room. And so we are so fixated on who is the driver in the car, standing at the front, getting the acclaim. We're not asking the question, but who made the engine? Who made the tires? Who made the components? Because that's where the money is. One of the difficulties I've had as a leader is the minute I started recruiting people, hands up if you've ever experienced this, rather than augment my skill set, they tried to replace me by being me. And I'm like, wait a minute. When God gave me the call, it was not a conference call. I was called on this path. And it's very difficult in this generation, especially in today's generation, where it's about how many followers do you have to be a follower. Did you catch that? How many followers do you have and be a follower? And so the challenge we've got, if we are really going to scale, really going to build multi-generational enterprises, and really going to lead this generation so the next generation can look back at this season and go, they had the template. Our chief challenge is this. It's going to be taking off the clothes of ego and putting on the clothes of impact. My ego says I should be main stage. But you know where impact is needed right now? Impact is needed in production. And so that's where I'm going to go, and that's where I'm going to focus. So, we have a sufficient number to cover. Are you ready for us to get going? Are we ready? Okay, good. Can I get a hand up if you're excited? Excellent. Can I get a hand up if your hand is not going to go up no matter what I say? There's usually about 3 or 4 in the room. There, we got one right there. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, good. So, let's get going. The first thing I want to share then, we started the conversation by saying we have to move beyond what, and we have to start focusing on how. How actually matters. How actually matters. There's something I've been musing about. It's really been bothering me. And I am fairly shallow in the waters of Scripture. I know Psalm 91. And you know, once or twice when I'm in conversation with somebody, I'll, you know, it's not by spirit, no, it's not by power, nor by might, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. I know just enough to say, sitting in the business class lounge, that I get away with being Christian. Don't act like it's just me. You guys know what I'm talking about. So, I need your permission to go personal, and I need your permission to be imperfect. Is that okay? My entire life, I was raised by an incredible woman and an amazing mother. My father was the sensei in the dojo. My father was a second-degree black belt in a style of martial arts called Kyokushinkai-gan, which emanates from the Masutatsu Oyama people in the island of Okinawa. And so when I was growing up, my father got me into the dojo. And then, as my dad understood that I had a bit of musical talent, he got me to start playing the violin, then got me into the choir. And so I lived this incredibly regimented life. Discipline every single day, doing the small things that didn't look like they were going to make a difference, but that's where genius is. Genius is in the iteration and application of what looks immaterial at the time. So when I'm stood here speaking to you, it's the over 20 years that has taken me to walk up that stage. Perfect. And then my father passed, and my mother raised us as a single mom. Incredible woman, amazing. There are not enough words in the length and breadth of the entire English language that I can use to explain and describe my mother to you. I spoke to her this morning, actually. We hadn't spoken in a while. Our relationship has been going through a very interesting period. And I spoke to her this morning, and I said, Mom, I need a word. And she said, look smart, sound intelligent, don't embarrass me. I was like, no, I need a word from the Bible. That's not. So my mother raised me to look smart, sound intelligent, and don't embarrass her. And I was the perfect model of this. Everything I touched, by God's grace, turned to gold. The problem with being a winner your entire life is you have no emotional residue for losing. So when losing hits you, and believe me, it will hit you, it hits you so hard that you begin to question everything about yourself. And you forget the things that God has carried you through. Now that's one thing. Listen, losing is one thing. Try and lose publicly. Ooh. And let me tell you, there's nothing worse. There is nothing worse than a lesser man having an opinion about a man whose path he cannot understand. We live in an era where people have YouTube pages to discuss other people's lives. I'm trying to figure out where the hell this come from. Your entire YouTube page is talking about me? Wow. Let's call YouTube. In my era, when I was growing up, journalists did journalism. They wrote about things that mattered. You read about stuff that advanced you. Now, who's arguing with who says what over who's talking about who on what podcast is the news? And I'm going, wait a minute. How is this advancing us? And in this crazy kingdom of darkness, pulling people down is currency suddenly. Suddenly, you become famous for who you can pull down. Your entire claim to fame is who can I destroy? Oh, I want to trend today. Let me get so-and-so to come and talk about so-and-so. Guys, I don't know about you, but where I'm from, we shunned that stuff. What did your mother tell you? Don't tell tales. Perfect, my entire life, Bishop, perfect. Everywhere I go, if I touch it, turns to gold. If I move, it's intentional, it's deliberate. I have a PR team for my PR team. You get it? Like my finance team has a finance team that advises my finance team about the work of the other finance team. I've got investment companies all over the world. This is a true story. I fly into a country and the president of that country will ask for me to come and visit. This is a true story. I will get picked up at the airport by an entire entourage. Perfect. The problem is, it's also manufactured. Did you get that? Yeah. In other words, I am walking not where I am led, but I am walking where I believe is the perfect place to walk. And so it is my eye that I'm using to see where I'm walking. It is not me, but he that should be lyrical. But I'm not going where he's telling me. I'm going where Vusi wants to go. All right, so we're going to do that business with that person and take that opportunity and go over here because it's going to work out perfectly for brand Vusi. And my brand people say, perfect. My PR people, amazing. My sales team, love it. My investors, you're the guy. My finance people, keep going. And the biggest problem with this, help me somebody, is I'm now so important in my own life that I am blind to myself. I start to think that I am what I wrote about me in the PR deck. Did you hear what I just said? So I don't even know who I am anymore. They ask me who I am, I go, wait, let me check paragraph 3. I am... Oh, yeah, I am. So I am now not authentic in how I show up. I want to be clear, please don't judge me. This is not an insidious, deliberate thing. It started because I was manufactured and taught to move that way. When the teaching that got me to a place no longer serves the place I'm going to. That teaching that said, get ready for this season, do the work, be in it, be intentional, that teaching suddenly doesn't work because I'm moving in a space where the only way I can have an impact on the next life is if I drop the guard of being perfect and just be human. I didn't have the wisdom at the time to understand what I have now understood, which was this. The reason God removed that veneer of perfection was so that I could learn how to have the grace for imperfect people. Because I was the guy who was saying, unless it's absolutely perfect, we don't do the deal. Now I've learned to say, but how did you arrive at this position in the first place? And how do we reconcile where you are with where you want to go? Leaders, hear me and hear me now. You're not ready to lead until you don't have the capacity to avenge. Yeah, you see, I grew up in what you guys call the hood. You come for me, I'm coming twice. You don't have to invite me. Send me the GPS, I'll come address you. All I need is a postal code, and I will find you. But you see, hold on, I am at the stage, and God is trying to take me to a stage, and He's saying, listen, listen, listen. You know this thing about punching back, fighting back, talking back, speaking back, always having the clap back, needing to be the last one to say the last word? Yeah, that doesn't work for where I'm taking you. So what you're going to do is you're going to shut up and let me do the talking for you. You just show up, be in the room, and deliver it. And the most incredible grace I have had is all of a sudden, when I see other people and I see them under attack, I go, bro, I get it. And not only do I say I get it, I go, bro, let's be friends. Because far be it for us imperfect people to judge other imperfect people. Yeah, but my marriage fell apart. All good. I get it. Yeah, but my business went under. It's all good. I get it. Yeah, but I used to have a drug problem. Listen, it's all good. I get it. Let's be friends. Do you want to know why? Because we are exactly the people He uses to elevate the kingdom. How on earth can we begin to move in spaces of darkness if we constantly want to exude light? Maybe what we need to do is learn to have the grace, the patience, and the dimming ability to softly introduce ourselves into the quarters of people who are not yet warriors of the kingdom, and then slowly turn them so that they become amongst what we are. If you are perfect, I don't want you as my friend, because I can't go to war with perfect people. If you have never had a blemish, I don't want you as my friend. Because the place I'm going, people are going to throw a couple of things at me. I need to know you have got some scars. I need to know you have been cut. I need to know you have been wounded. It's not the perfect warrior I'm after. It's the warrior with the perfect heart. Listen, I don't know about this God you all serve. I'm tired of this guy. Sometimes I just want to be like, but God, why? Just keep it simple. Don't you sometimes wish you could have that Sunday school God? Remember the Sunday school God? Father Abraham and many sons, many sons. I don't like this adult God. There's too many spaces of gray. There's too many places where I'm trying, and I'm just like, God, I don't know that I am ready for this one. I stand here today, an imperfect man. All I have is the air in my lungs. I believe that there is a calling on my life. I think I carry an anointing. But I have learned this. Neither the air in my lungs nor the light of my anointing exempts me from the attacks of the enemy. In fact, it's exactly what draws him. I said to a pastor friend of mine, I was like, listen. You said to me, it's a true story, pastor friend of mine, Pastor Reverend Julian in Kenya. I said, you said to me, surrender and submit yourself to the Lord your God. I did that. You didn't tell me that would be the beginning of my problems. Because if you'd have told me that, I might have gone, give me a week, let me think about it. The hardest thing about leading in today's season is imperfect people want to give themselves the jurisprudence to elect perfect leaders in a world where none of us are. And so perhaps then, the grace we need as human beings is to go, not is my leader perfect, but is this leader called for this season? I can worry about their perfections later. I just need to know, are they the person called for this season? Because if they're called for this season, then I'm not looking under the mattress to see what's hiding there. All I'm looking to see is, do they understand the calling and are they God-led? That's all I'm trying to see. Do they understand the calling and are they God-led? I knew about God. I really did. I knew about him. I went to Sunday school. You know, I was in the choir. I grew up a Roman Catholic. I was an altar server. I'm a confirmed Catholic. I knew about God. He was very nice, this God that I knew. Very nice. He was there rescuing Samson. I'm like, this is the God I need. I knew about him. Help me say this. But I only met him on the way down. Yeah, I knew about him on the way up. No, I knew about him on the way up. I knew about him. I was like, people were like, hey, Vusi, congratulations, you won an award. I said, thank you, God's grace. I knew about him on the way up, but I only met him. I only felt the measure of his breath. I only saw his face clip slightly. I only but experienced him a little bit on the way down. And in this moment of isolation, first I went inward and then I heard a voice. I heard a voice, and the voice said, it said something like this. The voice said, this is tuition. Yeah. You want to go to the school of leadership? This is your tuition. You say you want to lead? Listen, Vusi, I get it. You're a smart guy. You've studied this. You've got an MBA. You've led organizations. You've led businesses. Young man, you've not been leading. You've been managing. I'm teaching you how to lead, and the cost of leadership, the tuition fee for leadership, is being isolated, misunderstood, maligned, your character questioned, and even then, standing still and saying, but by the grace of God, forward I march. Here I will go. Called to that place, I will not turn, and I will not change direction, because it is He that leads me. How am I doing? How are we doing? So, you know, Lincoln, the hardest thing for me as I'm stood here is looking at luminaries I follow all over social media. And they're standing looking at me. I almost wish my dad was here just for this moment. Just for this moment. I want to say, all of us in this room, if you truly believe of yourself called to be a leader, get ready to pay your tuition. Get ready to pay your tuition. And so we spoke about the what to do. That's why the how is difficult. The how is difficult because the first part of the how is I've got to be willing to pay my tuition. And the tuition fee for this place of leadership is isolation. The tuition fee for this place of leadership is being misunderstood. The tuition fee for this place of leadership is being maligned, lied about, spoken about, and still loving those people enough to lead them as well. A reverend brother of mine was talking to me about the life of Jesus Christ and the leadership lessons we draw from the life of Jesus Christ. And he says to me, you recognize that on that cross on the mountain of Calvary, when Jesus lost his life, he died not only for those who loved him, but for those who did not as well. I must be honest, Reverend, there was a part of me that wanted to say to him, but I'm not Jesus. Now, I read the Bible, I'm not there. You come for me, I'll come back. So how do we lead? First, pay the tuition fee. Pay the tuition fee. Leaders, here is the second how where we get lost in our leadership journeys, is we don't take those we have around us with us on the pathway. Now, I'm not a perfect man, I admit. In fact, I am an addict to hard work. I am addicted to enslaving myself to my business. It's one of these things, especially entrepreneurs, you'll know what I'm talking about. We love this idea that I need to die at the altar of enterprise. And it's all over social media now. All you've got to do is follow one of these Instagram channels and they'll say things like, you must have the ability not sleep for 7 days. Don't eat for 2 weeks. And completely close yourself from the world to be a successful entrepreneur. But what I've learned and realized is that actually that's not true. You can completely lead, you can completely ascend, you can completely grow, and you can hyperscale and take your business to the next level without compromising and sacrificing your life and the people who love you. This is completely and entirely possible, but it requires a mindset shift from us. The first part of that mindset shift is recognize that it's about integration, not competition. So you integrate parts of your life into the part of your life and the path that you are walking. You make them work together, not work against each other. So we've got to take those we lead with us. Take those we lead with us. This is a fundamental part of how we lead to next. Take those we lead with us. How do we do that? First, make sure they understand why you're doing what you're doing. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you in enterprise? Why are you in leadership? Why are you in management? Why are you so driven? Why? Second, and a lot of us miss this next step, give them equity in the outcome. See, I'm an investment guy, right? This is what I do. I buy and scale businesses. But I've learned over the years that even if we buy an incredibly well-run business with a very talented entrepreneur or founder, unless they have equity in the upside, they will not help us deliver that upside. And so in our leadership journey, what a lot of us lack is the inability, or the ability rather, to give equity to those in our lives about what the upside looks like. And as it says in Scripture, paint the picture and make it plain. Exactly what does it mean, Daddy, when we get to the other side? The sacrifice we are making, what's my part in it, and what do I gain at the other side of it? I wish somebody had taught me this when I was younger. I mistook and misunderstood that my children knew that if Daddy was flying or traveling or in meetings, he was doing it for them. They didn't. They just saw Daddy wasn't around. And for them, a lack of Daddy's absence meant a lack of Daddy's love. And so it was always, yes, we're important, but the business meeting is more important. Yeah, we're important, but Dad's flights are more important. We're important, but Dad's money is more important. I just wish somebody had taught me, give them equity in the upside. Equity in the upside. The third how is to recognize that work is distance multiplied by time. So, for any of you here who are inclined to find yourself in the gym, you know that the way you build the muscle is to strain it. But you also know that the way to build the muscle even faster is to put the muscle under extreme tension for a longer period of time. In fact, the personal trainers will tell you it's called time under tension. So the amount of tension the muscle carries for a longer period of time is the function of work that the muscle has to do. What I've learned is over our leadership journeys, if you're anything like me, I was constantly looking for the way to end the pain and to end the work. And so you're always looking for next shortcut, next way out, next off-ramp, not recognizing that actually the time under tension is what builds my leadership capacity and leadership ability. So what does this even mean, Vusi? What is this time under tension? First, when I was a younger investment professional, I had a mentor, I'll never forget, Niall, and he said to me, if you took a potato and I had one too, and both of us planted these potatoes in separate fields, and I gave you twice the quantity of water to water your potato as I had, he said, even then your potato wouldn't grow at twice the rate. Because there is a natural rate at which the potato can grow. So there is a natural rate at which your leadership ability can grow. And in the world today of instant gram, instant reel, instant oats, they even have instant grits now. We need to pray about that. That's wrong on so many levels. But in the world today of so much instant, we're constantly looking for the shortcut, even at the stage at which we should actually stay exactly where we are and learn the things we need to learn. So, leaders, that task that needs to be performed in your space of leadership is sometimes not for you to delegate, it's for you to master. So before we delegate, we master. Once we've mastered, we document. When we document, we train, and that's how you delegate. But if you don't start at mastery, you can't document, therefore can't train, because you haven't spent the time learning it. I invest in hyperscale businesses, and I'm fascinated at how many entrepreneurs we will meet and talk to who will tell you about a rate of growth they've had for 3 years. And the first question I ask them is this: where's your time under tension? Have you spent time in that call center answering phone calls? Do you know what your clerks are doing in the administration function? How much do you know about what your buying department is doing? Because the magic is in the things that are hidden. So I'm going to need you, before we talk about this investment, I'm going to need you to take off the fancy suit, to stop flying business class, and I'm going to need you to go back of house. I'm going to need you to go into the engine room. And I'm going to need you to master these skills that you're trying to delegate to other people. Because if you try to delegate what you haven't mastered, you run the risk of your kingdom being pulled from underneath you. You see, this is why even if I went to the potter's house, I couldn't do what the bishop does, because he's had time under tension. And so every time I experience his anointing and gift, it is an amalgam of millions of hours in study, hundreds of thousands of hours in delivery. It is a level of mastery reached where even the master is blind to their own mastery. You see, a samurai warrior doesn't wake up and go, I'm a samurai. He just is. He doesn't know what he knows, he just knows. He doesn't have to be asked how to do it, he just does it. Because he's had so much time under tension that the minute the tension is applied, the skill is what comes up. Do you see it? So let me say it in a different way. You're trying to learn the skill. I'm saying time under tension is what amplifies the skill. You want to get good at this thing? Get good at doing it over and over every single time when nobody's looking, when nobody's paying attention, when there are no followers, no likes, no Instagrams, no shares, no YouTube channels, when there are no investors, when there's nothing like this, when it's just you and the purpose and the calling and the work. Do it then. Do it in the darkness. Do it when it's quiet. Do it when it's not fashionable. Do it when you're scared. But just do it. Because I can assure you of this. My ability, by His grace, to get on a stage and divorce myself from the challenges I would be facing in my life and honor the calling of that moment and deliver was because I've had time and attention. So when I'm under pressure, my skill just naturally pops up and says, don't worry, we got you. Yeah. You trained us for exactly this moment. We got you. You just show up. You just show up. You just go on stage, Vusi, go on stage and trust us. Trust the thousands of hours in iteration and application. Time and attention. This is not a fashionable message, please. I assure you this is not a fashionable message, especially today. But it's a fundamental message for leaders. Fundamental message for leaders. When I was 17, I had the incredible privilege of meeting the founding father of my country, South Africa, Nelson Mandela. I just won the World Championship in public speaking, and I arrived home, and my mom was quite emotional. She'd received a letter from the Mandela Foundation saying that I was invited to come for tea. South Africa, before apartheid, was a British colony. So we still have a lot of the kind of the subtle British nuances. And so you go for afternoon tea, not coffee. Coffee's common. Tea. So I'm invited for tea, and the day arrives, and I'm off to Nelson Mandela's office. And I grew up in a township, and the township I grew up in, and for context, the South Africans in the room and the Africans will know what I'm speaking about, but the way my country was designed was such that on the one end, you'd have predominantly, but not exclusively, black African people, and on the other end of town, you'd have white Europeans. And next to the black African people, you would have an industrial area, factories, say, and next to the area where the white Europeans lived, you'd have the leafy suburbs, or the CBD. And between the industrial area and the CBD would be an army barrack or a police station. The reason was because the architects of apartheid anticipated unrest and knew that if these people would ever rise up, they would first have to traverse through the industrial area, and even then would be met by the brutal police. This is why we celebrate the 1976, for instance, or rather don't celebrate, but commemorate 1976. My birthday, the 21st of March, is our Human Rights Day, because in the history of my country, there were people who marched for their freedom and were shot by the police at the back, and over 60 of them died. So, I had to go from township to town. Got to make this whole journey. And eventually, when I arrived at the part of town where I was going to meet Nelson Mandela, the public transport system we have in South Africa doesn't go through the crevices of the streets. It drops you at the main road. And then you walk from the main road to the house that you were headed. And I remember I walked probably what must have been, you guys talk in miles here, I'm not sure how much it is in miles, but about 3 kilometers, say. And until that day, my complexion was a bit like Drake's complexion. But no, it's true. No, it's true. I walked in the sun, and this is what happened. Couldn't afford sunscreen back in those days, so. Sunscreen was just this. That was good, right? Yeah. So I arrived at the Nelson Mandela Foundation office, and there was a lady there, Umamtutu. In my culture, when you speak to elders, you never call them first by their name. Here, you would say ma'am or miss. In my culture, an elder female, just by being elder, is your mother. And so, Umamtutu. And so I went and I met Umamtutu, and I said, Sanbonani. And I said, my name is Vusi, I'm here to meet Madiba. She went into the book, looked for my name, found the name, asked me to sit at reception. And I'm sat at reception. I imagine most of you here have worked in those companies where that reception chair, so many people have sat in it that as you sit, you can feel yourself sink into the abyss and your knees rise above your eyes. And you're balancing, trying to find your balance like so. And whilst I'm sat, she calls Mr. Mandela's secretary, Zelda. And she rang Mr. Mandela's secretary, a huge leadership lesson there, by the way, and a massive leadership lesson. Nelson Mandela comes out of jail, having been put in jail for 27 years. 19 of those years he spends in this island called Robben Island. The details that are perhaps less understood is that they didn't spend those 19 years in jail just sat idle. They were forced to do manual labor. And so as Nelson Mandela grew older, his eyes had problems because part of his manual labor was to break the rock face. And it was a white rock face, and the sun would bounce against the rock face and into his eyes, and it damaged them. As he grew older, he had a problem with his Achilles tendon because of the amount of walking and the amount of weight that they had to carry, these rocks that they had to carry. I don't know about you. I think it takes something special for you to suffer that long for 20 years and not seek retribution. So I'm sat waiting, and when Mandela became the leader, he makes this decision to hire a secretary, the person closest to him, who would look just like the people who incarcerated him, and who came exactly from the culture of the people who incarcerated him. This is the person closest to him, understands his movements, understands his agenda, has access to his person, his spirit, his family, his work. And of all of the people he could have chosen, he chooses this person. A representation of his incarceration. You are not ready to lead until you are ready to believe in the grace and the humanity of those who denied you yours. See, taking along people who are like you, that's not leadership, that's management. So when I hear people say things like, oh, we grew up together, I go, great, how's management going? I can only work with people in my community, great, how's management going? You want to lead? You go into the crevices of darkness and you shine the light. It's easy to say it in 2024. People forget that at the time, Nelson Mandela himself was called a traitor. Himself, by his own people. It's always your own people. Is it just me? It's always your own people. There is a subculture and a narrative in South Africa, even to this day, that says Nelson Mandela sold out. I'm sorry, sold out what? 27 years of not seeing your own children, not burying your own son, not being a husband to your own wife, not being a member to your own community, losing your entire career as a lawyer, 27 years of losing your wealth, your wisdom, your space and community, 27 years, and you have the audacity, the unmitigating temerity to call me a sellout? Isn't it interesting how the people who call him a sellout never did their 27 years? Do your 27 years first. Then come and tell me how I should lead at this place. Because maybe there is something I learned in this 27 years that showed me how to lead at the level I am called, not the level we come from. But because you use the eyes of your understanding for where we come from, you don't see where we are called and you miss the work. Your inability to discern is what results in you calling me a sellout. It's always your own people. It's like when somebody succeeds and somebody says they sold their soul. I asked somebody the other day, I said, where do they sell these souls? Because I need to buy one. Does Costco have a sale on souls? It's these people that go on social media and talk about so-and-so sold out to so-and-so. You ever notice how the slave will call out the slave for selling out, but won't tell us the slave master they sold out to? I'm going to sit here and just let you guys just take that one in. A person who looks like you goes out and says that you, because you look like the way you look, do not deserve the level of success you've had, but for the fact that you sold out. And you sold your soul to them. But they never have the courage to name them. Who is they? Which conference did they go to? So I'm sat waiting to meet Madiba. I'm nervous, Bishop. I'm nervous. I'm so nervous. My teeth are knocking against each other. My knees are shaking. And there is a little bit of sweat, a little bit, coming from the back of my neck, down my spine. We don't need to talk about the final destination, but it's back of my neck and down my spine. I can feel it. I can feel it too. I feel it. I can't believe I said that. I'm so sorry. So I'm sat waiting, and Zelda comes to meet me. She says, in a very deep Afrikaans accent, she says, "Hi, are you Mr. Vusi Thembekwayo?" I said to her, "Vusi Thembekwayo." She says, "Yes, are you him?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am he." And she says, "Good, let me take you to the study." She takes me to his study. Allow me to wax lyrical for a bit. We get to his study, and at the entrance of the study is this beautiful golden arch door. The handle was broken in, so the only way to open the door was to open both handles and push both doors in. And as she opened the door, the study was deep but narrow. From the beginning of the study all the way to the end was this long running Persian carpet. Wooden cupboards with glass front on either end of the study from the floor to the ceiling. Behind the glass in the wooden cupboards, a bit of light. Inside the cupboards, encyclopedia. It looked a bit like a lawyer's chamber. And in the middle of the study was this quaint oriental table with 3 chairs around it. I remember this vividly though, because as you stood at the beginning of the study, if you looked over, you saw this French pan window. And if you just stilted like so, you could see a koi pond with koi fish in it. It is said that on his most difficult days, it is in this exact place Madiba would end his day. Sat next to the window, listening to the stillness and the serene sounds of that koi pond. She says to me, "Now, Mr. Thembekwayo, can I get you something to drink?" I remember my mother, look smart, sound intelligent, don't embarrass me. I'm decided that I was invited for tea, so I'm going to ask for tea because coffee's common. So she says, "Can I get you some tea?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, I would like some tea." And then she said those words. I don't know how it is here, but in my country at the time, coming from where I'm from, we only had certain types of tea we could afford. So she says to me, "Would you like jasmine or Earl Grey?" And I said, "Who's Jasmine?" She went and fetched me tea. I'm sat waiting, and the tea's on the table. And I pick up the tea to drink it, and my hand shakes. And so a little bit of the tea spills on the saucer. It's not a problem. That's what the saucer's there for. The problem, though, is I've got to set the tea back down, which means the next time I pick it up, when it starts to spill again, it splatters on my shirt. I'm decided I don't want the world's most iconic statesman to come and meet a young man with a stained shirt. So what I'm rather going to do, instead of pick up the teas, I'm going to lean in and drink it like so. hoping that he doesn't find me while I'm cowered. You ever found your child stealing milk in the fridge and you're just like, what's going on? Yeah, it was a bit like this. So there I am and I'm leaning in to drink, and then whilst I'm leaning in to drink, I heard, where is he? Remember my knees, my teeth, and that sweat at the back? Yeah. And I start shaking. Mr. Titim, he's in the study. Okay. Madiba was a big man. I'm 6'2", Madiba was 6'5" when I met him. He was 6'6" when he was younger. Size 13 shoes. He probably came from Texas. Might have played for the Cowboys. Nah. But because of his injury to his tendon, he didn't walk with the heel of his foot like most of us do. He walked with the ball of his foot. He had a very heavy walk. When he walked toward you, you heard him coming. And so I hear this voice, and then I hear, go, go, go. Gets to the door, and the knock. Opens it. Takes 2 steps forward. Go, go. Opens up his arms. He looks at me and he says, my son, come here. Yeah. Nobody had called me Nobody had called me my son until that day, since my father's death. And I remember so vividly when he said those words, there was a rush of emotion. There was a tingling in the belly, then it tightened. I felt my chest just close in on itself, and my throat started to clog up, and my face heated up, and I knew what was about to happen. What was about to happen was sugar water was going to come running down my eyes. And I'm decided this is not a good look. And I was just about to start crying. And I leapt up and I gave him a big hug. He was so tall that at my height, as I hugged him, my face was on his sternum. Gave me this big bear hug and he says, right, now sit. And I sat for 1 hour with the world's most iconic leader in his generation. I was listening to the bishop yesterday when you were interviewing the incredible Ambassador Young, and I felt that in my spirit, this amazing ability to just dig into the wells of wisdom that goes so deep into the recesses of history that it has forgotten what we haven't learned. Do you recognize how rich yesterday's session was? That we got to dig into a time we didn't have to experience to draw that wisdom, that we can leave all of us here leaders and have that recess of information. Just unbelievable. From the HNIC himself. Woo! Sorry, Michael. Sorry. Michael's looking at me like, is he supposed to say that? That ain't. So I'm sat for 1 hour. And I decided on my way to this meeting with Madiba that the most judicious use of my time was not to make statements, but to ask smart questions. I flew all the way from Johannesburg to say this: leaders are not those with answers. They are those that know what questions to ask. And so in this moment and in this season, your job as the leader is to know what are the questions of this season. Questions like, who are these people that are questioning the need for us to drive diversity, equity, and inclusion? And what is it that is their agenda? Leave here Hear me and hear me now. Your ability to advance as a leader is exponentially pronounced when you learn what questions to ask. It's not what are we doing, it's why are we doing it. It's not where are we going, it's why are we going there. It's not who is leading, is our leader called to lead. I don't know about the God you serve, but the one I serve uses imperfect people. And that's precisely what it is that makes them perfect. Because he's the only one who can make us perfect. So, 1 hour. We're 58 minutes in. I'm now a successful executive, so I can tell you I've learned the cues. And I saw Zelda knock at the door, open the door, and peek her head. I know today, Bishop, that's the sign for, y'all wrap this up now. Mandela, by the way, had this incredible ability to tell such deep stories. He told me that he's a royal Bondo person. They're part of the Xhosa nation. And when his son passed away, whilst he was in prison, listen to this, whilst he was in prison, in his custom, if your son dies, the father must bury the son. If they don't, Bishop, the child never sees the hereafter. Mandela begged the warden of the prison and the apartheid government to let him go home and bury his son, and they said this. They said, if you renounce what you have said and you renounce your beliefs, we'll let you go and bury your child. Forced to choose between what he was believed and what he was called to do, and what was convenient to do, he chose what he believed and what he was called to do. How many of us would make what decision if that moment came? I don't know about you, but as a father of 3, I'm not sure I would have stayed in that prison. Not see the hereafter? Not meet our Lord and Savior? No, sir, that's not a decision I'm making. I love y'all, but not that much. We get to the end of the meeting. I said to him, Dada, I have one last question. This is the question I will leave with you. I asked him, what is it that is your dream for our generation and for mankind? He said, your people need a little bit of faith. I asked him, I said, well, what is faith? He said, young man, faith is the ability to believe in the impossible, to see the invisible, and to trust in the unknown. ILS 2024. Leaders of this moment and this season. If we are to lead and to truly lead, we're going to have to learn to be people of faith. To go where we are called, to make the tough decisions, to elevate those that try to destroy us, and to save even those that don't know they need saving. Because I don't know about you, and I don't know about the God you praise, but the God I praise tells me He sends me into the place so that I can do the work. He takes me from my place of comfort to the place of need so I can do the work. There is somebody in this room here today who was called, and you've been sat back nervous, waiting. You've been sat back nervous, waiting, asking God the question, me? Really me? Really this time? That whisper, that's not a mistake. That's the intentional voice of God. It is that whisper, Bishop, that saved me on those nights when I contemplated my own life. It is that whisper, Bishop, that gave me strength when I didn't know where it would come from. It is that whisper, Bishop, that saw me through the darkest times, when friends were enemies and when my name was a joke. Bishop Jakes, the impact of your life is immeasurable. It truly is. But if we ever were to try and put a speck on the measure of this man, it wouldn't be what you've done. It would be what those to whom you have done it have done. Millions of lives touched, hundreds of millions more who found faith and hope. Sundays when I would wake up in the darkest season of my life, and tuning into the Potter's house was my place of grace. I want to thank all of you for being in this room. I don't know why you came, but I want to thank you for giving me the incredible gift of your audience. I hope I have brought some value to your conversations. Leaders, leave here and lead. Lead when it hurts. Lead when it's dark. Lead when it's unfashionable. Lead when they're quiet and when they speak. Lead. Because the true mileage of leadership can only be counted by us, as Sarah said yesterday, finishing strong. Thank you so much.